Thank you. And let me just get an idea of timing and where you guys are at. Do you need to stand up for a minute, stretch, move around a tiny bit before lunch because you've been sitting for a long time? Do you want to, Let's stand up and, yeah. Woo! Yes. Sitting inside can be hard. Keep doing it, yeah. Pretty soon the food will come, we'll be nourished. It's all good. Oh. So while you're moving around, I can keep talking, right? I feel honored to be here, and I'm always honored to be part of the WVC events. So thank you for this time to sing my heart song to you. And I will cry, as I always cry. I was saying to Maria, I titled what I was going to talk about as plants as solace for the soul. And when you walk in and you see the plants on the altar, I think it's self-explanatory. They move us all in ways that words cannot always convey the feelings that we get from these amazing plants. I believe personally that we owe it to this beautiful planet that we inhabit to commune with the gifts that we've been given. Psychoactive plants, food plants, medicine plants, all the different bioactive species that we are co-evolving with. And when I say that about communing, I walk my talk. This week, I brewed San Pedro cactus in preparation for being here. I wanted to, my intention was, what do I convey this weekend? How do I want to present myself and present the work that I do? And how can I help the community understand how important these species are? So I did the, I don't know how anybody works with San Pedro anymore. I'm in a different position in my life as a grandmother. But nobody was around for a couple of days, so I took, well, actually, I'm going to back it up. I went to visit an old friend. He called because he had huge stands of San Pedro that had fallen over in a windstorm. And he had gotten them from me maybe 30 years ago. And so I said, well, and they're beautiful, absolutely beautiful specimens, like 15 feet tall, really big diameter with flowers all over them, and they had fallen over. So I said, well, we're just gonna chop them all off and replant them later. And as I was leaving, he said, why don't you take a really nice big piece? So I chose a piece that had some flowers on the top, because what I know about plants is flowering is their highest form of being. They try to flower their whole lives, and then they do, and it's like, whoa, wampa wampa. And if you've ever seen a San Pedro in flower, you understand the beauty and the fragrance and the divine energy of those flowers. Okay, so I took a big hunk back. I thought, well, this would be a really good time to cook it up and to sit with it and to prepare what I wanted to convey this weekend. So I do the old school way of cooking it for hours, doing a couple of water extractions, putting the extractions together, and simmering it down to about a half a cup for myself to consume. And I got my everything ready, and I poured it out at the end into a beautiful bowl, and I looked at the color. It was just amazing. It was this golden elixir that I was going to partake of. And when I first tasted it, it tasted sweet. And I was always told that when you drink San Pedro, you taste yourself, basically. And so I'm just saying, I really did taste the sweetness. It was amazing. My second and third and fourth swallows, they weren't so sweet, but I could taste it on the edge of the bowl. It was encouraging. So I had this beautiful botanical wash for hours where I just felt cleansed and cleaned and purified and nourished. And I looked out at the trees that were swaying around me, and I kept asking, what am I supposed to say? So after many hours, the message that I got was just 2 words, and it was, thank you. And I'm saying this now because since I've been here, people gravitate towards me to talk about plants and to tell me their experiences and to ask many questions. And I've already heard a number of people talk about unusual experiences with the plants and trying to find terminology for being able to communicate about them. And so I know it's up for a lot of people. Maya's presentation last night was awesome, and she spoke about deities in her garden and the fairies and the energy. And okay, so I'm taking that a step further because I want you to know that it is as simple as saying thank you over and over and over. Thank you. I see you. Nice to see you. Over and over and over. I start my thank yous before my eyes open in the morning. I'm grateful for my life, and I'm grateful for the day, every single day. And I'm in a place in my personal evolution, evolving with all these different life forms, where it's happening all the time for me. I don't really think about it so much anymore, but I know a lot of us are thinking about it, wondering, how do we connect? And so I'm saying, again, it's as simple as saying thank you. We need to acknowledge these other life forms all the time, not once a year or even once a month, but how about every day? I parked my car a few blocks away, and as I walked, I was looking at the trees, and I was going, thank you, hello, thank you. Do any of us do that? Are we thinking about honoring all the life forms on the planet every day with love and integrity? I'm going to suggest that you start to, if you don't already, and that a simple thank you, San Pedro to me, to you, will work wonders in your evolution of being able to connect with these plant species. Just like we would say hello to a person, we say hello and thank you to every tree, every blossom, every leaf. So in my experience, and I've heard this before, I don't know if it's just the power of suggestion or not, but they say that if you repeat something for 40 days, it will become a habit. And so I'm hoping that you will take this to heart and say thank you to plant species every day for 40 days, and it'll become a habit in your life. And then the next time we meet, you can tell me that you've done this and that it really and truly works. Okay, so that's just the beginning. When you start to acknowledge these species, then they acknowledge you in return, and you'll be able to hear them in different ways. It's not like you're going to, necessarily, hi Jane, how are you today? But it could be like that. You'll get messages subtle and strong, that'll continue to come as, just like with a friend. You know, you get to know that friend and you learn more and more about them. And that's the way that San Pedro is suggesting to you all this weekend, that you learn more and more about these species. Okay. Right outside my door, well, okay, back it up again. My youngest son, Kanoa, about half a year ago, about 8 months ago, begged me to come and live with him and his daughters, he and his daughters. And they're my granddaughters that are 2 and 3 years old. And at first the thought frightened me. I was like, whoa, I don't think so. But then I started really thinking about it, and it's been a wonderful experience to be with them. Where am I going with this? So right outside my door, I have probably 100 different species of plants. This is outside of a garden or a greenhouse or anything, but right outside the door. And this is where my granddaughters come to play. They have their little trucks and their cars and their bikes and all this stuff there. And the biodiversity is so important. You know, there's this, we're talking more and more about the microbiome, which are the trillions of species of fungi and pathogens and microbes that live within and without us. And so the more species of everything we're able to have around us, the better. And they say that walking in the woods, you can just smelling the different trees will create more biodiversity in your microbiome. They're even saying that the microbes on the medicinal plants that we use are going to be making a big difference in the future, that we're going to acknowledge where these plants are growing and the microbes that they have on them as more personalized medicine. I mean, it's daunting. There's so many things happening plant-wise, and none of you would be here if you weren't interested in these topics. So as we awaken more and more to our evolving consciousness with all life forms, the more we're able to accept their gifts and gift them in return. A few years ago, I lived at a goat ranch, and Annie and Julie came to visit me there, so they know about all the goats that I was living with. And I was a really good goat wrangler, and they referred to me as a goat whisperer because I could get the goats to come. And we had to do a lot of moving the goats around because we had babies all over, and I mean, it was quite a scene. So I had the task of wrangling our wildest goat, and we called her Apache. I didn't name her Apache. She was named Apache. And she was a beautiful, very, very wild, kind of young goat, and she's really, really strong. And I caught her, and I grounded my feet so that she couldn't get away from me. I had her on a long lead, but she turned, and I wasn't ready for that, and she torqued my body. And so a couple years later, I'm bone on this hip, and I am going to go and have it replaced, which I've never had any surgery before. But in the interim, I'm dealing with chronic pain, and I make cannabis medicine, and I use it diligently, and I wouldn't be able to stand here, I don't think, if I didn't have it in my system all the time. So I it has to do, of course, with my set and setting, how altered I become when I use it. So I'm a little altered anyway, and I'm fine. And again, happy to be here, but I wouldn't be standing here without cannabis medicine, absolutely. Yeah. So I take being a grandmother seriously, and there is this grandmother hypothesis, and I didn't really even think about it until very recently. And the grandmother hypothesis has to do with women living beyond childbearing years so that we can help our daughters or daughters-in-law produce more offspring by helping them care for the family. And I mean, there's many variations on this, and it also has to do with whether I'm a paternal or maternal grandmother. Whatever the case may be, I understand that it's an important social role, and that I'm looked upon now to transfer what I know about healing and life, and it's a big responsibility, and it's really fun. And my granddaughters already are asking me about the plants. I made what I called fish soup the other day as I fertilized everybody, and they were out there with their little sunglasses and watching me and helping me. That's a whole other thing. So I'm responsible to pass on traditions. And when Sophia was talking, she mentioned her grandmother many times and ancestral wisdom and how important it has been in her life and helped her get going. And I want to say that I had my own grandmother, Pearl. She was the one that initiated me into healthy lifestyle and living. So the traditions keep going. And I see Emma has arrived. And you're still, okay. I'm going to pass, I'm all over the place, but this is how I usually do it. And I'm not going to apologize. The only thing I'm going to say I'm sorry for is that I have dirty pots. You know, I looked at them and I was aghast. They were all lit up last night. Well, oh my goodness. But whatever. I'm going to pass around. I'm going to kind of toss these. Maybe somebody come up and get a couple of these. Just pass these leaves around. I'm not going to talk very much more right now because we're going to do lunch. But I'm going to have another spot, and I want to talk about 4 plants in particular. This is Gotu-kola, and it's making a comeback. Gotu-kola is a plant that is mostly grown in Asia, and we offered it in our catalog many, many years ago. I put it into apple cider vinegar now. But Gotu-kola, if you open up one of you can eat them, please. I have a whole bunch more in the little cooler over there. But if you look at this plant and you think about the doctrine of signatures, you see the 2 lobes of the brain and the spinal cord. And this is super brain food. And it rejuvenates brain tissue, it helps heal connective tissue, and I'll talk about it more later, but I want you to try it if you can. Another whole out there thing. I want to say something about another gardener. Her name is Wendy Johnson, and you know Wendy Johnson? She wrote Gardening at the Dragon's Gate, and she's been a gardener at Green Gulch for about 30 years. And prior to that, she had gardened at Tassajara up above Big Sur in the mountains. And Wendy has all these gardening principles in her book. And so if you want gardening inspiration, it's a beautiful, beautiful book to read. And it has drawings and lots of sage gardening advice. So her last, number 7 principle is generosity with the harvest. And she cites in the biblical book of Leviticus, one of the laws of Jewish life was not to cut the corners of the fields after the main harvest. And the reason for that was so that lonely, homeless people, strangers could come and be nourished. And so I thought, what a perfect segue into underneath the altar are San Pedro cactus cuttings, and I brought those as offerings. The same sort of thing. It's from my family, my garden to you. So please feel free to take them, grow them, eat them, whatever. Especially if you don't have them yet. Do you want me to keep talking, or do you want to do the lunch thing and I'll pick it up later? Where are we at lunch time-wise? Okay. Then I want to tell you about 4 different plants that I think are super important right now today. And I mentioned a little bit about goticola. And I have a few of them that I'd like to sell or trade or whatever this weekend. I also have some ashwagandha. And yes, you have one of the ashwagandha. I only brought a few of them. Ashwagandha, I've been listening to some interconnected the interconnected series on the internet, and over, every expert on that series for 9 days or 7 days, whatever it was, concluded that ashwagandha is the best anti-anxiety medicine in the world, and it's really easy to get. You can grow it, or like up where I live in Sonoma County, we have the Sonoma County Herb Exchange. And they offer in the fall, they offer organic ashwagandha root from, I think, Peggy Schaefer, who lives in Petaluma and has huge gardens and greenhouses. You can take ashwagandha in tincture form. I take it every single day, and I think that's part of the reason I don't flip out all the time, which, I mean, makes sense, right? And so you can take it in tincture, you can make it in a tea at night. It's good for nourishing children that are debilitated, elders. It's really good for insomnia. It's really easy to grow. It's a beautiful plant in the Solanaceae family. So if anybody would like to grow it, they don't want to buy a plant, whatever, I'm going to give you my email address, and you're welcome to contact me because I always have fresh seed that I would love to send and share. Another of the plants that I brought, no, I didn't bring, but I want to talk about a little bit is Tulsi, holy basil, queen of herbs, great anti-depression remedy, good for the respiratory system, the digestive system, the nervous system. She's a beautiful plant, spicy. I do have some. I brought some Tulsi cordial. Very, very easy to grow, very easy to get. People at farmers market have it. Makes a delicious tea and will help prolong your health and longevity. The other plant I wanted to mention briefly is calamus, and that's this iris-looking plant. There are 2 species of calamus. One comes from Asia, and one is a North American native. We actually have more growing in California of the Asian species than the North American native. For some reason, I'm not sure about that. I can tell the difference by the ribs on the leaves. So this is the true Acarus calamus, but the one from Asia. And it's used in Ayurvedic medicine a lot. And it literally refers to speaking. And they've even been using it with autistic people to help them to speak again, particularly children. I don't know in what form they use it, but it works, which is pretty phenomenal. It rejuvenates the brain, the nervous system. It helps with cerebral circulation. And then there's also a piece about it neutralizing what they used to call negative side effects with cannabis. And I brought it to, the cannabis workshop that we did with the WVC. And some people took some. I don't know did anybody here take some and try it? And okay. And what did you experience, though, when you say you love it? Do you mind? Nice.
Can you repeat what she said?
She said smooth and calm, and she loved it. So you can get calamus root. You can grow it, and I brought in a bunch more plants from my collection this morning, and I'll share them. And a lot of these plants can be divided. It's really easy to divide them. Please?
Just to clarify, you're saying that the calamus helps with some of the potential anxiety that can come from using cannabis?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. And you can smoke it with the cannabis.
Amazing.
Uh-huh.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the root. Yep. And then I wanted to say something about, okay, I'm done talking about these plants right now. I'm going to do it again a little bit later. But I wanted to say something. This evening we have Jennifer coming to talk about Kalea Zakadachichi and the dream work that she does, and she's going to lead a dream circle. And you're going to partake in Kalea Zakadachichi tea, apparently, and then come back in the morning and have time to powwow about it. We went in search of Kalea Zakadachichi many years ago, some part of Mexico. I don't recall where it was. And we brought it back, and we sold the seeds, and we sold the herb, and the plants are hard to grow. They're very fragile. But my experience with it was I just had to have the intention. I remember I never drank it as a tea. It's very, very bitter, but I have smoked it before. And the first time I rolled a, do you call, if you're doing, it's a joint? Or is it joint only cannabis? I don't know. Anyway, I rolled a thing with Kalea Zakadachichi, and I set it by my bed, and I was going to smoke it, but I fell asleep, and I didn't need to smoke it. I had the most incredible dreams. So it was just the part of partaking and maybe touching it did it. I don't know.
Can you spell it for us?
Kalea Zakadachichi, yes. Capital C-A-L-E-A. E-A, and then Zakadachichi is little Z-A-C-A, T-E-C-H-I-C-H-I, Zakadachichi. But what I wanted to say is Jennifer is such a beautiful example of connecting with a plant species and doing this amazing work with it. I mean, it sounds like she's devoted her life to dream work and written about it and goes all over the world. So she has really connected. How about if we pick this up later and have our lunch so we can move around and be nourished and talk to each other. And everybody that I have heard speaking has been fantastic, and I feel like all of you have been tough acts to follow. So thank you for your patience with me and coming to be here with this group, and I'll talk with you all a little bit later.